Her controlling ex spotted her across the charity gala, and in pure panic, she grabbed the nearest stranger and begged him to pretend to be her boyfriend. What she didn't know was that the man whose arms she'd thrown herself into was the city's most feared mafia boss. And he'd been waiting his whole life for someone worth protecting with everything he had. The champagne glass trembled in Lily's hand as she scanned the glittering ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across designer gowns and tailored suits, while Manhattan's elite mingled beneath oil paintings worth more than her yearly rent. She didn't belong here, not in her borrowed black dress or with her knockoff heels, but desperation had driven her to crash the Children's Hospital charity gala. 3 months unemployed, with bills piling up like autumn leaves, she needed to network. One conversation with the right person could change everything. "Excuse me, miss," a waiter glided past with a silver tray. "Hors d'oeuvre." "Thank you." Lily grabbed a small appetizer, trying to look natural as she positioned herself near a group of pharmaceutical executives. She'd researched the guest list obsessively, memorizing faces and company affiliations. The plan was simple: blend in, make connections, secure interviews. What could go wrong? Everything, apparently. Across the crowded room, near the auction display of vacation packages and art pieces, she spotted him. Ryan Mitchell. Her ex-boyfriend's familiar sandy hair and sharp jawline sent ice through her veins. He was supposed to be in Chicago for his consulting job. What was he doing here? Their eyes met across the sea of people, and his face transformed from casual interest to predatory focus. A slow, cruel smile spread across his lips, the same expression he'd worn during their last fight when he'd cornered her in her apartment, demanding to know why she was trying to leave him. Ryan began moving through the crowd with purpose, his expensive suit making him blend seamlessly with the other guests. But Lily knew that determined stride, had seen it countless times before he'd exploded into one of his controlling rages. Panic clawed at her chest. She'd moved to New York specifically to escape him, had changed her phone number, blocked him on social media. How had he found her? "You look like you've seen a ghost." The deep voice beside her made her jump. Lily turned to find herself staring up at the most intimidating man she'd ever encountered. He was tall, easily 6'3", with dark hair swept back and piercing gray eyes that seemed to see straight through her. His black tuxedo fit like it had been crafted specifically for his broad shoulders and lean frame. Everything about him screamed power and danger, from his confident posture to the way other guests unconsciously stepped aside as he moved. Lily glanced back toward Ryan, who was now only 20 feet away, pushing past a cluster of socialites with barely concealed irritation. Without thinking, desperation overrode common sense. She grabbed the stranger's arm, her fingers encountering solid muscle beneath the expensive fabric. "Please," she whispered urgently, "pretend you're my boyfriend. Just for a few minutes. Please." Most men would have pulled away, demanded an explanation, or assumed she was crazy. This man simply studied her face with those calculating gray eyes for exactly 2 seconds, then made his decision. His arms slipped around her waist with fluid confidence, pulling her against his side like they'd done this 1,000 times before. The gesture was possessive yet protective, and Lily felt an unexpected jolt of electricity at the contact. "Of course, sweetheart," he said smoothly, his voice carrying just enough warmth to sell the performance. "I was wondering where you disappeared to." Before Lily could respond, he cupped her face with his free hand and brushed his lips against her cheek, a gentle, intimate gesture that would look convincingly romantic to any observer. His cologne was subtle but intoxicating, mixing cedar and something darker that made her pulse quicken. "Lily." Ryan's voice cut through the ambient chatter like a blade. He stood 3 feet away now, his brown eyes blazing with familiar fury. Up close, she could see the slight flush in his cheeks that always preceded his worst outbursts. "Ryan." Her voice came out steadier than she felt, bolstered by the solid presence of the man beside her. "What are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing." Ryan's gaze shifted to her companion, and something flickered across his expression, surprise, then calculation. I don't believe we've met. Adrian Cole, the stranger, Adrian, extended his hand with casual authority. His grip looked firm enough to crush bones, though his smile remained perfectly polite. And you are? Ryan Mitchell, Lily's boyfriend. Ex-boyfriend, Lily corrected quickly, feeling Adrian's arm tighten protectively around her waist. Adrian's smile never wavered, but something cold flickered in his eyes.
Ah.
Well, Ryan, it was nice meeting you, but Lily and I were just heading to our table. The auction's about to begin. It wasn't a suggestion. The dismissal in Adrian's tone was subtle but unmistakable, carrying the kind of authority that made successful men back down without understanding why. Ryan's jaw clenched. Lily, we need to talk. Privately. I don't think so, Adrian said before she could respond. His voice remained pleasant, conversational, but there was steel underneath. The lady seems perfectly content where she is. The tension between the two men was suffocating. Ryan looked like he wanted to start a fight, but something in Adrian's calm confidence gave him pause. Other guests were beginning to notice the confrontation, whispers starting to ripple outward. This isn't over, Ryan said finally, his voice low and venomous. He looked at Lily with the kind of possessive rage that had driven her to flee Chicago in the first place. We'll finish this conversation later. He stalked away through the crowd, but not before shooting one last look over his shoulder, a promise that made Lily's blood run cold. Well, Adrian said once Ryan had disappeared, he seems charming. Despite everything, Lily almost smiled. You have no idea. She realized she was still pressed against Adrian's side and stepped back, immediately missing the warmth. Thank you. I'm sorry for dragging you into that. Don't apologize. Adrian's expression had softened slightly, though his eyes remained watchful. I take it you two didn't part on the best terms? That's putting it mildly. Lily wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly feeling exposed without Adrian's protective presence. I should go. He'll probably be waiting outside. Then we'll make sure you get home safely. The we was stated as simple fact, not a question or offer. Lily looked up at him, taking in the sharp intelligence behind those gray eyes, the way he commanded attention without trying, the expensive watch that probably cost more than her car. I don't even know who you are, she said softly. Adrian smiled then, and it transformed his entire face from intimidating to devastatingly handsome. Well then, we should fix that. Adrian Cole, entrepreneur. And you're Lily? Thompson. Lily Thompson, she hesitated. What kind of entrepreneur? The successful kind. His answer was smooth but revealed nothing. Now, shall we get you out of here before your friend decides to cause a scene? As Adrian guided her toward the exit with his hand on the small of her back, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just traded one dangerous situation for another. She had no idea how right she was. The cool October air hit Lily's face as Adrian guided her through the Ritz-Carlton's marble lobby. His hand remained on the small of her back, a steady presence that somehow made the opulent surroundings feel less intimidating. Doormen in crisp uniforms nodded respectfully at Adrian as they passed, their deference suggesting he was more than just another wealthy guest. My car's just out front, Adrian said, nodding toward a sleek black sedan that looked like it cost more than most people's houses. Oh, that's okay. I can catch a cab. Absolutely not, his tone brooked no argument. Not with your ex lurking around. Through the tall windows, Lily spotted Ryan pacing near the hotel's fountain, his phone pressed to his ear. Even from this distance, his agitation was obvious in the sharp gestures and rigid set of his shoulders. Her stomach clenched with familiar dread. He's persistent, she murmured. Obsessive is more accurate. Adrian's gray eyes tracked Ryan's movements with the cold precision of a predator studying prey. How long were you together? 2 years too long. Lily pulled her borrowed shawl tighter around her shoulders. I thought I'd escaped when I moved here. Changed my number, deleted social media, the whole thing. Adrian's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Yet here he is. The valet approached with Adrian's keys, but he waved the young man off and opened the passenger door himself. The interior smelled like expensive leather and subtle cologne, with technology that probably rivaled NASA's control room. Where to? Adrian asked as he slid behind the wheel. Lily rattled off her address in Brooklyn, immediately feeling self-conscious about her modest neighborhood compared to his obvious wealth. But Adrian simply programmed the GPS without comment, his movements efficient and confident. As they pulled away from the hotel, Lily caught sight of Ryan in the side mirror. He was staring directly at their car, his face twisted with the kind of rage that had once made her sleep with a chair wedged against her bedroom door. "He's watching us," she said quietly. Adrian's eyes flicked to the rear-view mirror. I noticed his voice was calm, but something dangerous flickered across his features. "Tell me about him." "What should I expect?" The question struck her as odd. Most men would have dropped her off and forgotten about the drama by morning. Instead, Adrian spoke like he was planning for future encounters. "Ryan doesn't handle rejection well," Lily said carefully. "He's controlling, possessive. He has this need to win at everything, and when I left him, I think it felt like losing." "Has he hurt you?" The direct question caught her off guard. Most people danced around the subject, uncomfortable with the implications. Adrian's straightforward approach was both refreshing and unsettling. "Not physically," she admitted, "but he knows how to use words like weapons. And he's relentless when he wants something." They drove in silence for several minutes, the city lights blurring past the windows. Lily found herself stealing glances at Adrian's profile, the sharp cheekbones, the strong jaw, the way his hands gripped the steering wheel with practiced ease. There was something about him that radiated power and control, but unlike Ryan's suffocating dominance, Adrian's presence felt protective rather than threatening. "Why did you help me back there?" she asked finally. Most people would have walked away from that mess. Adrian's smile was slight but genuine. "I don't like bullies." There was something in his tone that suggested personal experience, but before Lily could probe deeper, they'd arrived at her building, a converted brownstone in Park Slope that had seen better decades. Adrian parked and was out of the car before she could protest, opening her door like they were on an actual date instead of fleeing from her psychotic ex-boyfriend. "Thank you," Lily said as they stood on the sidewalk. "For everything. I know this wasn't how you planned to spend your evening." Actually, it was the most interesting part. Adrian studied her face in the streetlight's glow. "Lily, can I ask you something?" She nodded, curious despite herself. "If you need a boyfriend to keep that guy away," he said, his voice serious, "I can be that. For real." Lily blinked, certain she'd misheard. Then she laughed, a slightly hysterical sound that echoed off the empty street. "You're kidding, right?" But Adrian's expression remained perfectly serious. "I don't joke about things like this." "You don't even know me," she protested. "We just met 3 hours ago." "I know enough," his gray eyes held hers steadily. "I know you're brave enough to crash a charity gala to look for work, smart enough to get yourself out of a bad situation, and strong enough to start over in a new city." The sincerity in his voice made her chest tighten unexpectedly. When was the last time someone had seen strength in her instead of vulnerability? "Adrian, that's incredibly sweet, but—" "Think about it," he interrupted gently. "Ryan saw us together tonight. He knows you have someone in your life now. That might be enough to make him back off. And if it's not..." Something flickered in Adrian's eyes, something cold and final that made Lily think he was far more dangerous than his polished exterior suggested. "Then we'll deal with that when it happens." He waited until she was safely inside the building's lobby before driving away, but Lily couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. From her third-floor window, she spotted a familiar figure across the street, partially hidden in the shadows between streetlights. "Ryan." Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "He won't always be around to protect you. We need to talk. R." 20 minutes later, as Lily deadbolt her door and checked the windows for the third time, another car slid quietly into position down the block. The driver's window rolled down just enough to reveal watchful eyes trained on Ryan's hiding spot. Adrian Cole kept his promises. From his own car 2 blocks away, Adrian spoke quietly into his phone. "Marcus, I need eyes on someone. Ryan Mitchell. Send me everything you can find." His consigliere's voice was dry with amusement. Boss, you've known this girl for 4 hours. Then we'd better work fast. 3 days after the charity gala, Lily was beginning to think she'd imagined the whole surreal evening. Then Adrian Cole appeared outside her office building at exactly 6:17 p.m., leaning against his black sedan like he belonged there. How did you? She started, then stopped. Of course he'd found her workplace. Men like Adrian Cole didn't leave things to chance. Thought you might like dinner, he said, straightening as she approached. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, but somehow made her feel underdressed in her simple blouse and pencil skirt rather than intimidated. Adrian, you don't have to. I want to. His smile was warm, but his eyes scanned the street behind her with professional thoroughness. Besides, I promise to keep you safe from your persistent ex. Can't do that if I don't know where you are. The logic was sound, even if the execution felt like something from a movie. Lily found herself sliding into the passenger seat despite every rational thought screaming that normal men didn't conduct surveillance operations on women they'd known for 72 hours. Any word from Ryan? Adrian asked as they pulled into traffic. Just the usual charming messages. Lily's phone had been buzzing constantly with texts from blocked numbers, each one more unhinged than the last. You can't hide behind him forever. I know where you work now. He's using you, just like I said he would. Adrian's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Show me. It's nothing I haven't heard before. Lily, his voice carried quiet authority. Show me. She scrolled through the messages, watching Adrian's expression grow progressively darker. By the time she reached Ryan's latest masterpiece, your new boyfriend is hiding something. Ask him what he really does for work. Adrian looked ready to commit murder. He's escalating, Adrian said finally. How do you know about? I dealt with stalkers in my business. The explanation came too quickly, too smoothly. The pattern is always the same. First they threaten you directly, then they try to turn you against the people protecting you. They stopped at an upscale Italian restaurant where the maitre d' greeted Adrian by name and led them to a secluded corner table. Lily noticed how Adrian positioned himself facing the door, how his eyes tracked every new arrival, how the staff treated him with the kind of deference reserved for very important or very dangerous people. What exactly do you do? She asked once they'd ordered. Import and export. Adrian's answer was as vague as it was immediate. Mainly luxury goods. Art, wine, that sort of thing. That must be lucrative. She gestured at their surroundings, the expensive watch on his wrist, the way he'd ordered the most expensive wine without glancing at the price. I've been fortunate. Adrian leaned forward, effectively ending the subject. Tell me about your job search. Any promising leads? The deflection was smooth but obvious. Lily filed it away with her growing list of questions about Adrian Cole, questions that multiplied every time she was with him. Over the next week, Adrian became a constant presence in her life. He drove her to work, picked her up for lunch, appeared at her apartment with takeout from restaurants she couldn't afford. He was charming, attentive, and completely invested in her safety in a way that should have felt suffocating but somehow didn't. Maybe it was because Adrian never demanded anything in return. He didn't interrogate her about her day or get jealous when male coworkers spoke to her. He simply existed in her orbit like a protective satellite, always there but never overwhelming. This is crazy, Lily told herself as Adrian walked her to her building after another dinner. Normal people don't do this. But when her phone buzzed with another blocked text, he's watching you sleep. Check your windows. She was grateful for Adrian's solid presence beside her. That's it, Adrian said, reading over her shoulder. You're not staying here alone tonight. I can't just. Hotel. My treat. His tone left no room for argument. Unless you'd prefer to spend the night wondering if Ryan's found a way inside. 2 hours later, Lily was settling into a suite at the Four Seasons that probably cost more per night than she made in a week. Adrian had arranged everything with a single phone call, including the security detail she wasn't supposed to notice, but definitely did. Meanwhile, across town in a private office overlooking Central Park, Adrian paced behind his mahogany desk while Marcus Romano watched with growing concern. "This is getting complicated, boss," Marcus said. His voice carried the weight of 30 years managing Adrian's business interests, both legitimate and otherwise. 3 meetings canceled, 2 shipments delayed, and now you're playing bodyguard to a girl you've known for 8 days. She's in danger. Adrian's voice was flat, final. From some obsessed ex-boyfriend, yes. But Adrian, Marcus leaned forward in his chair. What if this is bigger than that? What if she's not some innocent victim who stumbled into your path? Adrian stopped pacing. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that in our line of work, coincidences don't exist. Marcus pulled out a tablet, swiping to a series of photographs. Ryan Mitchell, MBA from Northwestern, works for Hartley Consulting. But look deeper. 3 of his recent clients have connections to the Torino family. The name hit Adrian like a physical blow. The Torinos had been trying to muscle in on his territory for months, probing for weaknesses, testing boundaries. You think she's working with them? I think a beautiful woman with a conveniently dangerous ex-boyfriend shows up at exactly the right moment to capture your attention. Marcus's expression was grim. And suddenly you're distracted, vulnerable, changing your patterns. Adrian stared out the window at the city lights, his reflection ghost-like in the glass. Lily's face flashed through his mind, the genuine fear in her eyes, the way she'd trembled against him at the gala, the grateful smile when he'd made her feel safe. Run deeper background checks, he said finally. But Marcus? If you're wrong about this, then I'll personally apologize to the girl. Marcus stood, straightening his suit jacket. But boss? In 30 years, I've never been wrong about a setup. As Marcus left, Adrian remained at the window, torn between the growing feelings he couldn't deny and the cold logic that had kept him alive in a world where trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. His phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "Thank you for everything. I don't know how I'll ever repay you." Adrian stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. In his business, paranoia wasn't a character flaw, it was a survival skill. Lily was reviewing quarterly reports in the cramped break room of Peterson and Associates when the shouting started. At first, she assumed it was just another heated discussion between the partners. The small marketing firm thrived on controlled chaos. But then she heard her name being bellowed across the office floor. "Where is she? I know she works here." Her blood turned to ice. Ryan's voice, raised and aggressive, carried clearly through the thin walls. Lily's coffee mug slipped from her fingers, shattering against the linoleum floor in a spray of ceramic and lukewarm liquid. "Sir, you need to calm down," came Janet's voice from reception. "I can't help you if you don't. Don't tell me to calm down. I'm her boyfriend, and I need to speak with Lily Thompson right now." Lily pressed herself against the break room wall, heart hammering against her ribs. Through the glass partition, she could see Ryan in the main office area, his hair disheveled and his usually pristine appearance unraveling. He wore the same expensive suit from the gala, but now it looked slept in, wrinkled from what she suspected were days of obsessive planning. "There you are." Ryan's voice turned sickeningly sweet as he spotted her. "Playing hide and seek, Lily? That's not very mature." Every head in the office turned toward the break room. Her coworkers, people she'd been carefully building professional relationships with, stared with a mixture of curiosity and alarm as Ryan pushed past Janet's desk. "Ryan, you can't be here," Lily said, stepping into the doorway. "This is my workplace. You need to leave." "Your workplace?" Ryan laughed, the sound harsh and mocking. "You mean this sad little office where you pretend to have a career? Come on, Lily. We both know you're playing dress up." Heat flooded her cheeks as conversations around the office died completely. Even Mr. Peterson emerged from his corner office, his expression concerned but uncertain how to handle the domestic drama unfolding in his professional space. "You left me for this?" Ryan gestured dismissively at the modest office space. "For some fantasy life in New York where you matter? Where people actually respect you." His voice rose with each word, drawing out every syllable like a weapon. "You're nobody here, just like you were nobody with me. That's enough. Lily's voice was steady despite the humiliation burning in her chest. You're embarrassing yourself. I'm embarrassing myself? Ryan stepped closer, invading her personal space in a way that made several co-workers shift uncomfortably. You're the one who ran away like a coward. You're the one who's been lying to everyone here about having some rich boyfriend. Sir, I'm calling security, Janet announced, reaching for her phone. Don't bother, Ryan said, not taking his eyes off Lily. I'll leave once I've said what I came to say, he raised his voice, addressing the entire office. Did you all know that Lily here is a fraud? She crashed a charity gala last week, pretending to be someone she's not, just to. Is there a problem here? Adrian's voice cut through Ryan's tirade like a blade through silk. Every head turned toward the office entrance where he stood in the doorway, perfectly composed in a navy suit that somehow made everyone else look underdressed. But it wasn't just Adrian's presence that commanded attention. It was the two men flanking him. Both were tall, broad-shouldered, and carried themselves with the kind of coiled stillness that suggested violence was always an option. They wore expensive suits, but their eyes swept the room with professional assessment, cataloging exits and potential threats with military precision. Ryan's mouth snapped shut mid-sentence, his bravado evaporating as he registered the subtle threat represented by Adrian's companions. Adrian, Lily breathed, relief flooding her voice. Sorry I'm late, sweetheart, Adrian said, walking toward her with unhurried confidence. His men remained by the door, silent sentries whose presence transformed the entire atmosphere of the office. Traffic was murder. Ryan found his voice as Adrian approached. You can't just what? Adrian's tone remained conversational, but something deadly lurked beneath the surface. Can't just pick up my girlfriend from work? Can't just object when some unstable ex-boyfriend harasses her at her job? The word unstable hit Ryan like a slap. His face flushed red, but when he opened his mouth to respond, his gaze flickered to the two men by the door, and the words died in his throat. Adrian extended his hand to Lily, palm up, fingers steady. Ready to go. Lily looked around the office at her co-workers' fascinated faces, at Janet's wide eyes, at Mr. Peterson's obvious confusion. The professional reputation she'd been carefully building was in ruins, but staying would only make things worse. She placed her hand in Adrian's, feeling the warm strength of his fingers close around hers. Gentlemen, Adrian nodded to his companions, who immediately moved to flank him and Lily as they walked toward the exit. Ryan stepped sideways, blocking their path. This isn't over. Yes, Adrian said quietly. It is. One of Adrian's men, the taller one with salt and pepper hair, shifted almost imperceptibly, and Ryan stumbled backward as if he'd been pushed, though no one had touched him. Have a nice day, Mr. Mitchell, Adrian said pleasantly, then guided Lily past the frozen tableau toward the elevator. As the doors closed, Lily caught a glimpse of her co-workers still staring, and Ryan standing alone in the middle of the office, his hands clenched into fists and his face twisted with impotent rage. How did you know? Lily asked as they descended. I have people watching, Adrian replied matter-of-factly. The moment he entered your building, I was notified. The casual way he said it sent chills down her spine. People watching. Notifications. Men who could make grown men back down with a look. Adrian, what exactly? Later, he said gently. Right now, let's just focus on getting you somewhere safe. That night, Ryan sat in his rental car 3 blocks from Adrian's restaurant, watching through binoculars as sleek black vehicles came and went from the service entrance. Men in expensive suits moved packages with military precision, their faces hard and watchful. When Adrian finally emerged at midnight, he wasn't alone. An older man with silver hair walked beside him, speaking in low, urgent tones. Behind them, 4 more men formed a protective semicircle, the kind of security detail that billionaires hired or crime bosses required. Ryan's phone buzzed with photos he'd taken, time-stamped and geotagged. License plates of cars that weren't registered to any legitimate business. Faces that appeared in FBI databases with connections to organized crime families. As Adrian's convoy disappeared into the night, Ryan smiled for the first time in weeks. "So that's your secret," he whispered to the empty street. "Time to bring you down." Lily's phone rang at 2:17 a.m., jarring her from restless sleep in the Four Seasons suite Adrian had insisted she use. The number was blocked, but she knew who it was before she answered. "Please don't hang up." Ryan's voice was different, quiet, broken, stripped of its usual arrogance. I need 5 minutes. Please." "Ryan, it's the middle of the night." I know, and I'm sorry." "God, Lily, I'm so sorry for everything." His voice cracked convincingly. "What I did at your office today. I was out of line. Completely out of line." Lily sat up in the Egyptian cotton sheets, her defenses automatically raising. Ryan apologizing was like a cobra shedding its skin. The result might look different, but the venom remained. "You humiliated me in front of my coworkers," she said coldly. "I know, and I hate myself for it." The sound of traffic filtered through the phone, suggesting he was calling from a car. "I've been driving around for hours, thinking about what a mess I've made of everything. About how I lost the best thing that ever happened to me." Despite herself, Lily felt a flicker of the old sympathy that had kept her trapped for 2 years. Ryan had always been masterful at finding her weak spots, at knowing exactly when to show vulnerability to make her question her own anger. "Ryan, I'm not asking you to take me back," he said quickly. "I know I don't deserve that. Could we talk? Just once? Somewhere public, somewhere safe. I need to apologize properly, and there are things you need to know. About him." The last 2 words were said with such gravity that Lily's stomach tightened. "What things?" "Not over the phone. Meet me tomorrow? That coffee shop on 5th Avenue. The one near the library. Noon. One conversation, and then I'll leave you alone forever. I swear." Lily stared out the hotel window at the city lights, knowing she should hang up, knowing this was exactly the kind of manipulation that had kept her trapped for years. "One conversation," she heard herself say. "In public. And then you leave New York." "Thank you." Ryan's relief sounded genuine. "Thank you, Lily. I promise you won't regret this." The Bryant Park Cafe was crowded with the lunch rush, exactly as Ryan had planned. Public enough to seem safe, busy enough that their conversation wouldn't be overheard. Lily arrived 10 minutes early and chose a table with clear sight lines to all exits, a precaution Adrian had unconsciously taught her. Ryan appeared at exactly noon, looking more like the man she'd once loved than the unhinged stalker from her office. His hair was perfectly styled, his clothes pressed, his expression appropriately contrite. He'd even brought flowers, white roses, her favorites. "Thank you for coming," he said, settling across from her. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't." Lily kept her hands wrapped around her coffee cup, avoiding the flowers. "You have 20 minutes. "I've been getting help," Ryan began, his voice carefully modulated. "Therapy, anger management. Dr. Morrison, she's helping me understand why I became so possessive, so controlling." It was a good opening, Lily had to admit. The right combination of accountability and hope for change. But she'd heard variations of this speech before, usually right before Ryan's behavior got worse. "That's good, Ryan. I'm glad you're getting help. The thing is, Lily, part of recovery is making amends. But it's also about protecting the people you care about from future harm." He leaned forward slightly, his brown eyes wide with apparent concern. "And I'm worried about you." "About me?" "About Adrian Cole." Ryan's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Lily, he isn't who you think he is. And I'm afraid you're just a pawn in whatever game he's playing." There it was. The real reason for this meeting. "Don't," Lily said sharply. "Don't you dare try to manipulate me by attacking the one person who's actually protected me from your harassment." "I hired a private investigator," Ryan continued as if she hadn't spoken. "Just to make sure you were safe, you understand? And what we found," he shook his head, projecting genuine distress. "Lily, Adrian Cole doesn't import luxury goods. He runs money through a dozen shell companies, all connected to the Lucchese crime family. The men who were with him yesterday? They're enforcers. Muscle. That's ridiculous. Is it? Ryan pulled out his phone, scrolling to a series of photographs. These were taken outside his restaurant 3 nights ago. Do you recognize any of these faces? Despite herself, Lily found herself looking. The photos showed Adrian emerging from what appeared to be a service entrance, flanked by the same men who had accompanied him to her office. But there were others too, faces she didn't recognize but which carried the same hard, dangerous quality. I don't care what your private investigator thinks he saw. Vincent Torino, Ryan said, pointing to a silver-haired man in one of the photos. FBI's most wanted list for the last 3 years. Racketeering, money laundering, suspected in at least 6 murders. And there he is, shaking hands with your boyfriend. Lily's coffee cup rattled against the saucer as she set it down. She recognized the older man from the photos. He'd been at the restaurant where she and Adrian had dinner, seated at a corner table with 2 other men in expensive suits. Even if this is true, which I don't believe, what does it matter? But her voice lacked conviction. It matters because you're in danger. Ryan leaned across the table, his voice urgent. Think about it, Lily. Why would someone like Adrian Cole be interested in someone like you? No offense, but you're not exactly running in his circles. The words stung because they echoed her own doubts. She'd wondered the same thing dozens of times over the past week. Maybe because I needed help and he's a good person. Good people don't have bodyguards, Lily. Good people don't make other men back down with a look. Good people don't have the kind of connections that can get you a suite at the Four Seasons with 1 phone call at midnight. Each point hit like a physical blow because they were all things she'd noticed, but hadn't wanted to question. I have to go, Lily said, standing abruptly. Lily, wait. Ryan caught her wrist gently. I'm not telling you this to hurt you. I'm telling you because I love you, and I'm scared for you. Just be careful. Ask him the hard questions. See how he reacts when you push. Lily pulled free and walked away, leaving the white roses on the table. But Ryan's words followed her onto the street, mixing with her own observations to create a cocktail of doubt she couldn't shake. Bodyguards who appeared from nowhere. Restaurant staff who treated Adrian like royalty. The way other powerful men deferred to him without question. The expensive lifestyle with no clear source of income. As she hailed a taxi, Lily realized she didn't actually know anything concrete about the man who had become the center of her world in just 10 days. 2 hours later, Ryan sat in a warehouse in Queens across from 2 men whose reputation made grown killers nervous. So, said the younger of the 2, his accent thick with Brooklyn vowels, you're saying you can deliver Adrian Cole? I'm saying I can deliver his weakness, Ryan corrected. He's compromised himself for this girl. Made himself vulnerable. With the right pressure, she becomes leverage. The older man, whose scarred hands had ended more lives than cancer, smiled slowly. Mr. Mitchell, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful partnership. Outside, the first snow of winter began to fall on the city, covering everything in deceptive white purity. The text came at 11:47 p.m., just as Lily was settling into bed at the Four Seasons. I know you're angry, but please read this. I'm leaving New York tomorrow morning, and I couldn't live with myself if I didn't try one more time. I'm at the parking garage where we used to meet when you visited the city, level 3, same spot. I have something that belonged to your mother. I should have given it back months ago. Please, Lily. 5 minutes, and then I'm gone forever. Lily stared at the message, her heart clenching. Her mother's jewelry had gone missing from her apartment in Chicago right before she'd left Ryan. She'd always suspected he'd taken it, but could never prove it. Her grandmother's pearl necklace, the only thing of value her family had ever owned. She should call Adrian. Should tell him about the text, let him handle it with his mysterious resources and dangerous friends. But the mention of her mother's necklace made rational thought impossible. Those pearls were all she had left of the woman who'd raised her alone, who died working double shifts to pay for Lily's college education. 5 minutes, she texted back. Then you leave New York and never contact me again. The parking garage was the same one she'd used during her brief visits to the city while still dating Ryan, a dingy concrete structure that served the business district, mostly empty at night. Level 3 had been their meeting spot because it offered privacy from the street-level foot traffic. Lily's heels echoed in the empty space as she made her way toward the far corner where Ryan's rental car waited, hazard lights blinking. He stood beside the driver's door, a small velvet box in his hands, looking appropriately penitent. "Thank you for coming," he said softly as she approached. "I know it was a lot to ask. Where's my mother's necklace?" Lily stopped 6 feet away, close enough to see the box but far enough to run if necessary. "Right here." Ryan opened the velvet case, revealing the familiar strand of pearls that had adorned her mother's throat at every important occasion. "I took it when you left. I know that was wrong, but I couldn't bear to let go of every piece of you." Despite her anger, seeing the necklace brought tears to Lily's eyes. "Give it to me." Of course, Ryan stepped closer, extending the box. "Lily, I want you to know that everything I did, the controlling behavior, the jealousy, following you here, it all came from love. Twisted, sick love, but love nonetheless." "Ryan, I know you can't forgive me." "I don't deserve forgiveness." His voice was thick with what sounded like genuine emotion. "But I hope someday you'll remember that I loved you the only way I knew how." Lily reached for the jewelry box, her guard dropping in the face of what seemed like genuine remorse. The moment her fingers touched the velvet, Ryan's other hand struck like a snake, pressing a cloth over her nose and mouth. The sweet, chemical smell of chloroform flooded her lungs before she could scream. Her vision blurred as Ryan's arms caught her falling body, his voice the last thing she heard before darkness claimed her. "I'm sorry, Lily, but you left me no choice." Adrian was reviewing shipping manifests in his private office when Marcus burst through the door without knocking, a breach of protocol that immediately put Adrian on high alert. "Boss, we have a problem." Marcus's face was grave as he held up his phone. "Text just came in. They have her." The blood in Adrian's veins turned to ice water as he read the message from an unknown number. "Come to the warehouse on Pier 47. Come alone or she dies. You have 2 hours. A friend." For exactly 3 seconds, Adrian sat in perfect stillness. Then his mask, the carefully constructed facade of a civilized businessman, shattered completely. "Get me everything," he snarled, rising from his chair with predatory grace. "Every camera in a 10-block radius of her hotel. Traffic patterns. Cell tower pings. I want to know who took her, and where they are right fucking now." Marcus had served Adrian for 15 years, had seen him order executions with the same calm he used to order coffee. He'd never seen his boss lose control. "Adrian, we need to think about this." "No." Adrian's voice was deadly quiet as he moved to the wall safe behind his desk. "We don't think. We act. How many men can you have ready in 30 minutes? "Boss, this could be a trap. If we go in guns blazing, then we bring bigger guns." Adrian pulled out a Glock 19, checking the magazine with practiced efficiency before tucking it into his shoulder holster. "Marcus, that woman means everything to me. Do you understand? Everything." The confession hung in the air between them. Marcus had suspected, but hearing it confirmed changed the equation entirely. "If she dies because I hesitated, because I played politics or worried about exposure, I'll burn this entire city down," Adrian continued, his gray eyes reflecting a coldness that made hardened killers nervous. "I'll start with whoever took her and work my way through every family, every crew, every street corner dealer until someone pays." Marcus nodded grimly. "I'll make the calls." Lily woke to the taste of copper and the sound of dripping water. Her head throbbed as consciousness returned in fragments. Concrete floor, zip ties cutting into her wrists, the musty smell of abandonment and decay. "Good, you're awake." Ryan's voice came from somewhere behind her. "I was starting to worry I'd used too much chloroform." She was bound to a metal chair in what appeared to be an abandoned warehouse, rust stains bleeding down the walls like dried blood. Industrial lighting cast harsh shadows across stacks of rotting wooden crates and broken machinery. "Ryan," she croaked, her throat raw. "What are you doing?" "What I should have done from the beginning. Ryan walked into her field of vision, no longer bothering to mask his obsession with false remorse. Taking back what's mine. I was never yours. You were everything that was mine. Ryan's composure cracked, revealing the seething resentment beneath. 2 years, Lily. 2 years of my life invested in you, only to have you throw it away for some criminal with a nice suit and a pretty smile. He's not a criminal, isn't he? Ryan laughed harshly. Did you think I was making it up? Your precious Adrian Cole is everything I told you he was. A killer, a criminal, a man who destroys everything he touches. And now he's going to have to choose between his empire and your life. The warehouse door creaked in the wind, the sound echoing through the empty space like a death knell. For the first time since this nightmare began, Lily truly understood the world she'd stumbled into, a world where love and violence were two sides of the same coin, where men like Adrian commanded armies and enemies like Ryan used innocent people as weapons. He won't come, she said, more to convince herself than Ryan. Oh, he'll come. Ryan checked his watch with satisfaction. A man doesn't surround a woman with that level of protection unless she means something special. The question is, what's he willing to sacrifice to get you back? In the distance, the sound of engines carried on the night air, multiple vehicles approaching fast. Ryan smiled as he pulled out a knife, the blade gleaming under the harsh lights. I guess we're about to find out. The warehouse erupted in chaos at exactly 1:43 a.m. Adrian's men moved like smoke through the darkness, their footsteps silent as death on the concrete floors. Lily heard them before she saw them, the whisper of tactical gear, the soft click of weapons being readied, the almost inaudible hand signals exchanged between professionals who had done this dance many times before. Ryan spun toward the sound, his knife trembling at Lily's throat. I said come alone. I lied. Adrian's voice echoed from the shadows, calm and conversational despite the circumstances. Just like you lied about leaving her alone. Floodlights suddenly blazed to life, transforming the warehouse into a theater of war. Lily squinted against the glare, her eyes adjusting to reveal Adrian standing 30 feet away, flanked by 8 men in black tactical gear. But it wasn't the weapons or the military precision that made her breath catch. It was Adrian himself. Gone was every trace of the polished businessman she'd known. His expensive suit had been replaced by black cargo pants and a fitted tactical shirt that revealed the lean muscle of a man who'd learned violence as a second language. A shoulder holster held what looked like a military-grade pistol, and his gray eyes had gone completely cold, like winter steel. This wasn't the man who'd brought her flowers and worried about her safety. This was Adrian Cole in his natural element, a predator who commanded other predators, a king in a kingdom built on fear and respect. Let her go, Ryan, Adrian said, taking a measured step forward. This is between us. No. Ryan pressed the knife harder against Lily's skin, drawing a thin line of blood. You don't get to negotiate. You don't get to win this time. Choose, Adrian. Your empire or her life. Lily felt the blade bite into her throat and forced herself not to move, not to breathe too deeply. Around the warehouse, Adrian's men had taken positions with the fluid efficiency of a SWAT team, their weapons trained on Ryan but waiting for their leader's signal. You think this is about choice? Adrian laughed, the sound devoid of humor. Ryan, you have no idea who you're dealing with. I know exactly who you are, Ryan snarled. Vincent Torino told me everything. About the money laundering, the protection rackets, the people who cross you and disappear. You're a criminal, and now everyone will know. Vincent's dead, Adrian said matter-of-factly. Has been for 3 hours. Terrible car accident on the FDR Drive. Very tragic. The casual way he announced a man's death made Lily's blood run cold. This was what Ryan had been trying to tell her. Adrian didn't just know dangerous people. He was the most dangerous person in the room. You're lying, Ryan said, but uncertainty crept into his voice. Marcus. Adrian didn't take his eyes off Ryan. Confirmed, boss, came Marcus's voice from the shadows. Torino's crew is handled. This warehouse is surrounded. Mr. Mitchell has nowhere to go. Ryan's breathing became rapid and shallow, the knife wavering against Lily's throat as his plan crumbled around him. You can't just. I have evidence. Photos, recordings. You had evidence, Adrian corrected. Past tense. Amazing how thoroughly a good fire can destroy digital storage devices. Then I'll kill her. Ryan screamed, his composure finally snapping completely. I'll kill her, and you'll have to live with knowing it was your fault. No, Adrian said quietly, you won't. What happened next took less than 3 seconds, but would replay in Lily's memory for the rest of her life. Adrian moved with inhuman speed, producing a knife from somewhere on his person and sending it spinning through the air with practiced precision. The blade buried itself in Ryan's wrist, causing him to drop his weapon with a howl of pain and release Lily's throat. Before Ryan could recover, Adrian was there, covering the 30 feet between them in heartbeats, his movements predatory and fluid. He caught Ryan by the throat, lifting him off the ground with one hand while the other retrieved his thrown knife. You made 3 mistakes, Adrian said conversationally as Ryan clawed at his grip. First, you threatened what's mine. Second, you brought her into my world. Third, you assumed I was the kind of man who makes deals. Adrian, don't. Lily started, but stopped when she saw his expression. There was no mercy in those gray eyes, no hint of the gentle man who'd worried about her safety and brought her coffee. This was the real Adrian Cole, a man who'd built an empire on the understanding that some sins demanded blood payment. You want to know who I really am? Adrian asked Ryan, whose face was turning purple from lack of oxygen. I'm the monster parents warn their children about. I'm the shadow that follows men like you until you make one mistake too many. I'm the reason smart people don't threaten the things I protect. The knife moved faster than Lily could follow, finding the space between Ryan's ribs with surgical precision. Ryan's eyes widened in shock, then glazed over as life left them. Adrian released his grip, letting the body fall to the concrete floor with a wet thud. When he turned to Lily, his expression immediately softened, though blood still stained his hands. Are you hurt? His voice was gentle again, concerned, as if he hadn't just committed murder 10 feet away from her. Lily stared at him, her mind struggling to reconcile the man she'd known with the killer standing before her. Adrian, You're safe now, he said, moving to cut her restraints with movements that were remarkably steady for someone who'd just taken a life. He can't hurt you anymore. No one can. As the zip ties fell away and feeling returned to her hands, Adrian cupped her face with fingers that still carried the warmth of violence. You'll never have to run from anyone again, he said softly, his gray eyes holding hers with an intensity that was both terrifying and oddly comforting. I promise you that. Behind them, Marcus was already directing the cleanup with the efficiency of long practice. Bodies would disappear, evidence would be scrubbed, and by morning the warehouse would hold no trace of the violence that had occurred within its walls. Lily looked into Adrian's face, this man who'd killed for her without hesitation, and realized her life had just changed forever. The penthouse overlooking Central Park was nothing like Lily had imagined. She'd expected ostentation, gold fixtures and marble statues, the gaudy displays of wealth she'd seen in movies about crime bosses. Instead, Adrian's home was elegant in its simplicity, clean lines, warm woods, and floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased the city lights like scattered diamonds. Lily sat on the leather sofa, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders and a cup of tea growing cold in her hands. She hadn't spoken during the drive from the warehouse, hadn't asked questions about the efficient way Adrian's men had made Ryan's body disappear, hadn't commented on the blood that had stained Adrian's hands until he'd washed it away in the car's minibar sink. Now, in the quiet sanctuary of his home, the trembling had started. Adrian knelt before her, his gray eyes searching her face with an expression she'd never seen before, vulnerability mixed with fear, as if he was the one facing an uncertain future. Ask me, he said quietly. Whatever you need to know, ask me. Are you really a criminal? The question came out as barely a whisper. Yes, no hesitation, no attempt to soften the truth. I run what most people would call a crime family. Money laundering, protection, import businesses that aren't entirely legal. I've killed people, Lily. More than I care to count. She'd expected the admission to horrify her more than it did. But after watching him murder Ryan with surgical precision, after seeing the way trained killers deferred to his authority, the truth felt almost anticlimactic. Why? She asked. Why that life? Adrian sat back on his heels, his hands resting on his knees. I was 16 when my father died. Heart attack, completely unexpected. He left behind debts to some very dangerous people, debts that were going to be paid in blood unless I found another way. He stood and moved to the window, his reflection ghost-like against the city lights. I had a choice, watch my mother and sister die, or become someone those dangerous people would respect. So I became a monster, Lily. I built an empire on fear and violence because it was the only way to protect the people I loved. And now the empire runs itself. I could walk away tomorrow, and it would continue without me. He turned back to face her, his expression raw. But I stay because leaving would create a power vacuum, and power vacuums get innocent people killed. Lily set down her teacup, her hands steadier than they'd been an hour ago. That's not what I meant. I know. Adrian moved closer, stopping just out of arm's reach. You want to know why I saved you? Why I turned my entire organization upside down for a woman I'd known for 10 days? Yes, because the moment you grabbed my arm at that gala, everything changed. His voice was soft, almost wondering. For 15 years, I've lived in a world where everyone wants something from me. Money, protection, power, fear. But you just needed someone to be kind. And when I was kind to you, you looked at me like I was a hero instead of a monster. Tears blurred Lily's vision. Adrian, I fell in love with who I was when I was with you, he continued, his words tumbling out with uncharacteristic urgency. You made me remember that I chose this life to protect people, not to hurt them. You made me want to be better. You killed for me tonight. I would kill 1,000 men to keep you safe. The statement was delivered with matter-of-fact certainty. I would burn the world down if it meant you could sleep without fear. The intensity of his devotion should have terrified her. Instead, it filled her with a warmth she'd never experienced before, the feeling of being truly, completely loved. Ryan was right, you know, Lily said, standing and moving toward him. I am nobody special. I crashed a party in a borrowed dress, looking for a job I probably won't get. I'm not glamorous or sophisticated or worthy of someone turning their life upside down for me. You're wrong. Adrian's hands rose to cup her face, his thumbs brushing away tears she didn't realize had fallen. You're everything, Lily. Your hope in a world I'd forgotten could be beautiful. You're the reason I want to be more than just a man other men fear. Your world is dangerous, she whispered. Terrifyingly so. People will try to hurt me to get to you. They'll die trying. Lily looked into his eyes, those gray depths that could go cold as winter or warm as summer storms, and made her choice. I don't care about your past, she said firmly. I don't care about the blood on your hands or the empire you built or the enemies who want you dead. I care about us. I care about the man who brought me coffee and worried about my safety and made me feel protected for the first time in my life. Adrian's relief was palpable, his forehead dropping to rest against hers. Are you sure? Because once you're truly mine, there's no going back. My world doesn't offer second chances or easy exits. Then it's a good thing I don't want either. Adrian stepped back and pulled a ring from his pocket, not a gaudy display of wealth, but a simple band of white gold set with a single diamond that caught the light like captured starfire. This was my grandmother's, he said, taking her left hand with reverent care. She told me to give it only to a woman worth dying for. The ring slid onto her finger with perfect precision, warm from his touch and weighted with promise. Not as a mark of possession, Adrian said softly, but as a pledge. You'll always have my protection, my loyalty, my love. Everything I am, everything I've built, it's yours now. And you have me, Lily replied, her voice strong despite the tears streaming down her face. All of me. The scared girl who ran from Chicago and the woman who's brave enough to love a king. Adrian kissed her then, soft and desperate and full of promises they'd spend their lives keeping. From the doorway, Marcus watched his boss hold the woman who'd transformed him from a cold-blooded king into a man capable of love. After 30 years of service, he'd never seen Adrian so completely, utterly happy. Well, I'll be damned, Marcus murmured to himself, a smile tugging at his weathered features. The boss finally found his queen. Outside the penthouse windows, New York glittered like a kingdom waiting to be conquered. And for the first time in 15 years, Adrian Cole had someone worth ruling it for.